Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday Build. This is episode 1.18, and today we'll be discussing the topic Intro to Gavel, Student Accounts versus Full. This is going to be a live walkthrough of this powerful no-code platform, and we're going to be featuring the featured differences between these different plans. So my name is Brittany Hernandez, and you can call me the bee emoji or bee or peanut or brittle as you like. I'm from San Diego, California, but I'm based in London now. Previously, I was on active duty in the United States military in the Coast Guard for 4 years as a boatswain's mate, second class petty officer in Puerto Rico and Alaska. I then became a lawyer. So I went to law school, became an intellectual property and entertainment lawyer in California, and later founded my own practice called Cormayam Law and became the founder and CEO of Cormayam Kamai LLC, which stands for Where Knowledge Meets Application and Implementation. I went on to get a master's degree in international film business from the University of Exeter and the London Film School, and afterwards became the business development executive and partner engagement executive for a legal tech startup out of Scotland called Gavel. After which I became a Gavel expert. So I am a specialist in this particular tool, as well as how it integrates within other tools as well, and with other tools such as Software, Airtable, Zapier, Notion, and so on. I also worked with GigLaw as a professional automator for a couple of months, which led me to this position that I'm in now, which is the Global Ambassador to Law Schools for Gavel, where I get to speak to different students, run fellowship programs, and do lots of other really fun things around the world, especially at conferences, talking about legal tech education. I'm also the program director and senior instructor for law students in legal tech access to justice fellowship, which is created by Gavel. I am so excited to announce that we had all of our fellows compete in the hackathon competition, which just ended today, where we announced the winners in each category. So we officially closed out the January 18th to May 3rd, 2023 hackathon competition and fellowship, and hopefully we'll be able to rework the program a little bit to kind of accommodate in future environments, such as later this year, or maybe making this an annual event. I'm also the founder, course creator, and senior instructor for Cormayam Academy, where we have Gavel certification courses in software and Airtable and Go Full Page, and more. I'm also the creator and host of the Lightning Talks for Legal Innovators series in partnership with Gavel, as well as the Wednesday Build, which is this series that we're doing now. I'm also the creator of the free interactive digital magazine called Code Word Hex, which is built on Gavel. And I'm the creator and editor of the Tuesday Forecast, which is a weekly newsletter, which lets you know about different upcoming community events. I'm also the founder of Cormayam Retreats, which is a way for different female founders and high achievers to come together in beautiful places around the world to get to know each other, connect, learn from each other, and grow our businesses together. So let's go ahead and get into today's topic. So for today, what I thought we might do is do an introduction to Gavel. Now, the reason for this is there are different types of plans within Gavel. So we have an option for students that makes it to where they're able to have a slightly limited version of this plan or the platform in order to learn how to play with the tool, learn how to create with the tool, in order to kind of just understand the mechanics of it and start to build things that are actually quite robust. But there is a difference and some significant differences between the student version and the paid version, and it would change how you approach your strategy to building. So I thought it might be useful to highlight those differences and maybe give some ideas of how you might change your strategy if you had the full plan versus the more limited student plan. So we do give student plans or the student platform access to the student platform to people who are current law students or students, as well as people who are working at pro bono clinics, any type of charitable organizations, such as legal organizations and so on. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out directly to me or reach out to help@gavel.io with a request to get access to this. So I'll show you what this platform looks like from the student side, and we'll go through kind of creating just a very basic master reference template together. So in this particular example, we're starting with the student account, and then I'll show you, as I mentioned, some differences. So this is what Gavel looks like from the editor's dashboard view. So there's a couple of different views that I always like to go over when you're dealing with creating a new application or workflow, which this kind of terminology is used interchangeably. So we have this dashboard view. So this is specifically for the builder, or you have also other types of views in the paid version, meaning you have also in this version, you have a difference between sort of an admin versus a builder versus a user, but you have one more in the paid version, which is an organizational user. So in this particular case, in this account, I'm a builder. I'll show you quickly what an admin looks like for the an admin looks like. Let me just go to this dashboard really quick to show you a quick difference here between the two. So one of the main differences between an admin in the sort of A to J side, and nobody out here like that I'm talking to would generally become an admin on here because you have to kind of be someone in Gavel in order to have that access. But I just wanted to show you that user management is generally an admin feature and functionality within Gavel. So if you notice here, on this side, we have our builder account. So this is a student who is building with this tool. And in this view, we have an admin account, which is my account as the Global Ambassador to Law Schools. So I have this, and then the CEO and founder, Doran Amwini, has this. So we're able to manage users by adding users and sort of making them, inviting people and so on. We do, as you can see, have other things that are similar. So here, the builder is able to create API keys, whereas I am able as admin to go in and update the system settings, which includes things like the logo here, the favicon image here, and any billing matters. So that is something that a builder wouldn't be able to do for that subdomain. So when we talk about a subdomain, we're talking about this part that comes before the gavel.io. And one of the main differences between a student version of this account and a paid version of an account is the ability to have a custom domain and your own dedicated, subdomain for your clients. So in this particular realm, this is a subdomain that's accessed by several different organizations, lots of different individuals and students. However, on my paid version for my own, that would only be people that I have within my own organization, as well as my own clients and users. And you'll see more of those benefits there as well. So as you can see, you have this sort of dashboard or playground view. And so in this kind of playground or dashboard view, you're able to do a couple of different things. You're able to create a new workflow. You're able to edit a workflow, delete, copy, or copy the, so let's see, I'll just kind of go through each in turn. So if we kind of take a tour, we have this ability to create a new workflow, which we'll go through together. We have the ability to see which ones we've created before and interact with them by deleting, duplicating or copying the workflow link to them, as well as going into the editor or running on the end user side. So I'll go over that in a moment. So we can do that for each of the different workflows that we've been creating with our account. We can also access the help center. We can collapse or expand this tool sidebar. We can go into our account and change our name, put in our name, our country code and state of address, et cetera, or go into second factor authentication or change our password. If we go back on this kind of sidebar here, what you'll be able to see is that we're able to see our document template library here. We can add new ones in here. We can replace, we can delete as whatever else we like. We also have the ability to upload images in sort of static images that we can later pull into our different accounts. Or sorry, our different workflows. As I mentioned, you can have your users seen here. So that's user management. And I'll show you kind of more on the paid user side so I can use my own sort of dummy data. And then we have the ability, as I mentioned, to create API keys, which you can do here, update system settings and billings if you're if you are an admin. So that's kind of what it looks like for the difference between an admin and a builder account when it comes to the A2J or student subdomain that we also use for people who are at legal clinics, for example. So if we go a little bit further into this particular one here, which is the builder account on the A2J subdomain, you can see, as I mentioned, we have all of these similar features except for a couple of on the sidebar that are slightly different. But if we go into this new workflow, we can create a new workflow simply by giving it a name. So let's say we give this a name of test master reference template. And we're not going to make a full master reference template, but just to kind of show you a couple of the bits and pieces that we go through here. So within the Gavel editor view, so as you can see, we have a different view now. So first we have the dashboard view, then we have this editor view, and lastly, we have the end user view. So in that case, let's just show you that by saving this, even though we haven't done any changes or made anything yet, we will see that we have the ability to quickly have a link that we can share with other people like this. That is a live web page that people can actually interact with. So obviously it doesn't have anything on it yet. We haven't actually done anything, but we can see that this has worked and that we have created something that we can then share with other people. And it also will show up on our dashboard here, which we can delete, duplicate, copy the workflow, link to, go into the editor or run. So when you say run, that's what takes somebody to the sort of end user side. And we say end user, it's the person who's going to be interacting with whatever you're making. You are able to create a static page, meaning there's no interactive elements here, which is by using a kickout page. So if we look at how we can do that here, what we notice is we have a couple of different things going on here, but thankfully they're quite limited so that we can be really specific about what we're trying to do. So on this side, so under the tab for questions, and even if you just kind of look more broadly outside of this, you can see that this is where we have the name of the workflow, which will actually appear here as the title of that page or that workflow. So we have test master reference template. So that is visible. The name you give here is visible to the end user here. Next, you'll see that we have this sort of new page. And the new page is actually the title of the page here, which can be changed. The section here I will show you later, which is going to give us some side labels and progress bar on the left-hand side. We can also close, save, or run. This allows us to duplicate a page or delete a page. You can go back to your dashboard or go back into your account here if you like. So you can also toggle between this section here, output documents, and settings. So we're going to stay in questions for a little bit longer. You can see that you can easily navigate between pages as well. And there's also a way to filter through questions and variables as well as by question type. So if you're looking for something in particular, you can quickly and easily do so with your toolbar, which you can expand or collapse. So if we go back to our sort of master reference template that we're creating here, a lot of the elements that we're going to go over now are going to be similar for a paid user. I'm just going to highlight some of the differences that appear under the question types. So I'm just going to quickly pull up my personal sort of Gavel paid. I pay the full rate for my account because I believe in the product so much. And I also use it for many of my own applications that I create. So you'll also see that we already have a lot of differences here on the sidebar. But what I was going to mention quickly is that within the, I'm going to go just to a testing workflow really quick, which is maybe this one here is fine, which is the CSV question. So a CSV file is one where you can have a lot of like static information that gets used all the time. You can have that in your files. So that's one difference between the two, is that you don't have the ability to use CSV files in the student account, but you do have the ability to do so in a full paid account. Or if you wanted to, if you're a legal clinic, you can pay a sort of a different price or rate for your own subdomain, or if you're a university. So you can get in touch with me if you'd like to know more about that. So what you can do with CSV files is it makes it to where things that are things that that repeat often, and you don't have to kind of use them, create them in a new way every single time, is a way to do this with a CSV file. So that could be, for example, country lists. So all the countries of the world, or all of the states in the US, or all of the cities in a current state or a certain state, and so on. Those can be put into a CSV file and uploaded here. And then you can use them in your workflows like this. So you can just say CSV data source, and then you can choose which one you want to choose from. And on the other side of this, you'll be able to see what the options are. So if I say like United States, for example, you can see the options here, and this is all pulling from the CSV. So it's an alternative usually to things like a combo box or a drop down or a single select, depending on how you're trying to utilize the information. So that is one difference between the two plans, is the ability to utilize a CSV file. Now, if we go back into our editor side, what we'll see is that our editors look the same. So you can see here that we have the ability to add a question. So everything else kind of looks very similar. So the way to create a new block is to say add question. And all the question types are going to be quite similar between the two plans, or so the two options here, which is a paid versus a student plan. So here you can see that we have the same thing here. We have text, text area, drop down, combo box, single select, multiple select, yes, no, number with decimal, date, email, etc., etc. What you'll notice is one of the difference here is CSV as a data source, as we mentioned. Also, for Stripe payments and Clio, these won't be available as integrations in the student plan, but they are available in full plans, which makes it to where you can have your Clio account connected as well as your Stripe account, so you can collect payments. And then both also have the ability to do some advanced logic. So if we go back here, as we were kind of starting here, is you'll be able to see, as I mentioned, how to create a static page. So if you wanted to have no interactive elements, just a static, maybe sort of informational page, or maybe something with lots of links off from it, you can do that here. So maybe we have a page that says like home or something, and we just say like hello world, and then we give some instructions, or we create links or whatever else. But if you wanted to not have this continue button here, for example, and you just wanted it to be a flat static page, you could do so like this. So as you saw, we used a kickout page to do so. So you can see that we've done that like this, where we've changed the header or title here, and we've added some text on our sort of kickout page block here. So now we have this sort of static page. And if we wanted to get rid of this top part here, what we could do is go to the Learning Center on the Gavel website, and we can look for custom CSS, which means kind of talking about formatting. And they give you all these kind of pre-built out ways that you can change the colors, for example. I often like to use the no header one, which is where I don't need anyone to log in. And you can actually white label this or sort of make it to where it looks like yours, like I've done here with a paid plan. So if we go into settings and we say change this style with custom CSS, we can drop in the link that we found from here and save that. And now when we refresh this, we're going to take that header off. So now we have this nice, clean, static page if we want to. Now, we can also make it to where this has interactive elements instead. So if you didn't want this to be a kickout page, and instead you wanted this to be, let's say, an instruction block, which is like a kickout page, but it allows you instead to have, so you still have text here, for example, with nothing else, but you have the ability to continue through the workflow instead of being sort of on a static or kicked out page. So with that being said too, I think it would be useful to go over some of the different question types. So you can do lots of different things, and you can just let your imagination run wild about how you would utilize these. But I just want to kind of show you what each of these looks like on both ends. So on the builder side, whenever you create a question that requires a variable, and I'll mention variables and talk about them in a minute. So if you notice here, we just put in some text. But if we wanted to have the end user the person who's using the application or interacting with it on the other side or this side, give us some information, or we're collecting information from them in some way, then we can use some of these blocks that will ask or prompt the user to give us some input. So here we have a text question, for example. So when it says question title, we're going to say something like question name. So this could be something like, let's say like, what is your first name? So I usually like using something like contact first name, for example, and I always like to have a variable map where I keep track of the variables that I use, because you need to get into the habit of using the same variables across all of your workflows, and that will become relevant when we talk about paid plans because of the data manager and the ability to push information from one workflow into another. So if we go back over to our master reference template, so let's say I dropped in my contact first name here. And what we can do is we can make this required or not required. We can duplicate this, we can delete, we can also attach logics or show or hide if something is a value of certain value. We can also change our question type quickly and easily here if we'd like to. In our settings, we can add some help text. So we can say something like this is a text question with a little smiley face, and we can have a default value. So maybe the first name here is Brittany, and we can have a minimum and a maximum character limit if we'd like to as well. So for now, let me just show you what this looks like, and then we can get fancy with it later. So let's go ahead and run this now, and we'll see that we have this instruction block at the top. We have our first question here. What is your first name? You see that you don't actually see the variable that we made because that is for your own internal reference that we've mapped here. And then we can see our help text. This is the text question, and we can see that this is a required question with this little red asterisk here. Now, if we put in our name, you can see that the end user can interact with this particular block, and that information will be able to be used in other places, such as an output document, other places or pages in your workflow, and so on. So let's say we now want to ask for their first name, their middle name, and their last name. So I'm just going to say quickly that I can duplicate this. I'm going to say middle name. I'm going to make this not required, and I'm going to change this to middle. So if you notice, we have two variables that have the same variable name, and that's not good because you want to be able to specifically identify something. So in this case, we want to be able to specifically point to and refer to the middle name or the last name. So we need to change these, but we need to use them consistently across all workflows if we're using the same type of question. If we're asking in this workflow for a first name, a middle name, and a last name, and in another workflow, we're asking that for that same exact information, then we want to use these same variables, and I'll show you why when we go into the full paid plan version. So now we have 3 questions that look like this. So we need to change and update our settings because right now we have, this is a text question as help text for all of them when we duplicated it. So we can save this now and refresh. So now that's taken off the little bubble that we had. And now you can also see that this is not a required question because not everyone is given a middle name. So now somebody can give us their first name, their middle name, and their last name, for example, here. So this is how you create with Gavel. So let's say we wanted to search for a specific question or variable. So if you say middle, for example, I can see that middle comes up with what is your middle name, and you can go to that particular question through your sidebar. You can also filter by a specific question type. If we say drop down, there's actually none, so it's going to show us nothing. If we say text, it's going to show us all of these ones because they're all text questions. So that's how you can use this little filter button here and utilize your toolbar as well. You're also able to move question orders depending on what you'd like. Let's say you initially wanted your question to be here, but then you decided later you want it to be at the bottom. You can move that around easily in your sort of sidebar toolbar here. So first we have some instructions, Then we have the first name, the middle name, and the last name. Once you change, just make sure you save. And I'm going to show you quickly about this section sidebar. So let me say like your information. And also let's change this to welcome. And we'll say something like, thank you for taking the time to complete the questions below, for example. So we're just kind of always updating and updating and updating, saving, refreshing, updating, and making sure we have this as we like. So right now we have welcome. Thank you for taking the time to complete the questions below. What's your first name? What's your middle name? And what's your last name? Now, when they say continue, they won't be able to continue unless they fill this information out because this information is required. Let's go ahead and fill this out. And they have this sort of review page. So they're able to edit their answers, change one thing, and then let's say they change one thing, and then they can go back. So this is a setting that you can change if you don't want to have a final review page here. So we can say skip the final review page. We also have the ability to include a link for the user to continue later. So in this particular example, if I refresh this here, you can see that save link to continue later has been added, which I'll show you in a second. And also that we're at the last page, which by default says, here are your documents. We can change that by customizing our messages. So in the general settings, we have My Styles, which you can change custom CSS, Advanced, which is including the link or skipping the final review page. We can also change the language of things like the continue button and so on. So if we make this Persian, for example, then we can save this and run this, and you can see that we have some Persian here, here, and here. So people can easily change the language. So we can also search. So I'm going to put English back. But just so you can see that you can do that if you would like to. So now we're back into English. So you can also, as I mentioned, customize different messages. So on the last page right now, it says, here are your documents. We can change this right here by just saying something like, thank you. So we have thank you. And then we can also do a lot of other tricky things, like make it to where if we had an output document attached to this, that it would be emailed to either somebody's email or based on like a variable, for example, or to yourself or to some other email that you designate. We can change all the messages of what shows up if that's the case here on the last page. Right now, we just say thank you because we're not emailing it to anyone. And then we have sort of this hidden document completion message here as well that we can update. We also have the ability to update different email automations. So for example, at the end, it will say, here are your documents. Thank you for the time, taking the time to fill everything out, but you can actually customize this quite a lot as well. You also have the ability to customize the email session to continue later functionality. So if we go back into our workflow here, we go back here, you see that you have this save link to continue later. So on this page, you can customize what's said here, here, and when it gets emailed to you, all in these sections. So you can actually also change what this link says. Right now it says save link to continue later, but we can change that easily here. So instead of save link, we can say email progress link. And we can save this, and now it will change from save link to continue later to email progress link. We can also quickly change anything else we'd like. Right now we have a title that says save and continue later. So if we go here, we can change what it says up here. We can change the message here, as I mentioned, and then whatever gets sent in the actual email here, here, and here. So the next up we have is integrations. So even though with a student plan, you don't have the integrations section on your dashboard, sidebar dashboard, you still are able to connect Zapier and have external integrations due to API keys that you're able to create inside of Gavel. So for example, in the paid account, you have this integrations tab, which allows you to put in your Stripe API keys as well as connect your Clio account so that you can use the information in Clio in your different workflows. Now, you don't see this integrations sidebar in the sort of student account, And the reason for that is that you won't have access to the Stripe and Clio integrations, because it would be kind of made across everyone who's using the HOJ subdomain, which means that people from different organizations and individuals from lots of different schools would have access to the same Stripe account and Clio account, which doesn't make sense. So it's been eliminated from that particular one. But it's still very robust, and you can still connect things through Zapier via your API keys. So that's why you'll see here on the integration side, both here as well as in the settings and integration side for the paid account, you'll see this kind of ability to connect your workflow to Zapier as well as add your webhooks here. And you can indicate whether you'd like to include documents and so on. So you can see that they're tracking actually very closely so far. There's just a couple of key differences here. Now, if we go into access permissions, you'll be able to see that you can make this to where anyone with the link is able to view this. So this is a public workflow. So these are accessible with or without a login by anyone who has the link. So if you're pulling from a private data source, though, such as a Clio matter or a Clio contact, for example, then it would still need to be somebody who's authorized on that subdomain to access it, as well as if you have a CSV file, if you have a paid account, that would be something that says contains private data, then it would show to the user as unauthorized. And so you can also make this to where only logged in users are able to access your application. So meaning they just need to log in. And if you want, you can make it to where they can only complete the workflow once, like this. So if maybe they pay for it and you don't want them to be able to use it over and over again, you can do so like this. Now you're also able to make it to where you allow only specific email domains. So the end of the @ so @chromium.pro, @gavel.io, and so on. So you can add that if you'd like. And then also you can make it to where you only allow specific email addresses to access this workflow if it's very sensitive, for example. So I'm going to go back to anyone with a link can view it. So it's just going to be public. So those are the different things that we can do in our settings tab. So if we go over to our output documents tab, what you'll notice is that you can utilize any either a PDF document or a Word document or a .docx or docx. So what you can do is you can upload a document or file from your computer. But if you're using a PDF, you can always unlock it first using the PDF unlocker and field renamer. So you can use, if the fields have already been kind of named in your particular document, you can just leave them as they are and upload them into your backend here. Or you can, as I mentioned, unlock them and then rename and then re-upload if you'd like. So you can do that here. And we'll go into the Word add-in in a moment. But as I mentioned before, you can send finalized documents to a particular email address, which you can use an email or select a variable if you'd like. So if you have, let's say, a contact email address variable, you can do that here. You can include the docx format or not, include the file uploads. Let's say somebody uses a file upload question. You can include that or not if you'd like. And then you can just make it to where you do not display the finalized documents to the workflow taker or not. Now, if you do, remember that that's going to change which message comes up at the end. So this would be the hidden document completion message here. So there's lots of things you can do, as well as creating conditional output documents. So meaning you can attach logic to whether something shows or not based on somebody's answers. So for example, show this document at the end if the answer to this question is yes or no, whatever else. You can also attach something called page logic. So if we go to a new page, we're going to just say call this test page, for example, and let's just have date of birth. So let's go to a date question. Let's say, what is your date of birth? And then we can say like contact. You could say DOB or date of birth, depending on how you use it in the rest of your variable maps here. So maybe I haven't asked this question. If I haven't asked this question before, I would put the name of my workflow where it appears for the first time, and I would put in contact DOB, for example. I'm not going to keep it here just because I don't want to mess up my real data. So here we can attach, let's say, page logic to this question to where I only want to know, let's say like your information or something. So here we have this question, and we want this page to only show if something is true. So let's say we're going to show this if the contact's first name is Brittany. Otherwise, we don't want this to show, right? So in this case, we have, let's put Bob, for example. So, let's go back for a sec. Just refresh our situation here. So as you can see, you can actually now see the side label. So this section progress label here that I mentioned previously, which we configured here. And you can have more than one. So you can have, it's just kind of showing the person where they are in the process and how much is left to go. So you can put that here on the top as well. And if you put the same exact one, then they're going to be considered in the same section. So it won't progress or show the next bar get highlighted if that one is not the same, if it's the same as the other one. So in this particular case, now you can see that this is shaping up to be a pretty good looking just sort of master reference template or workflow here. So if the person puts their name as Bob John Becker, then they say continue, then it's going to go past the question about date of birth and go straight to the end because we've skipped the final review page. But if we put Brittany, and then we put Louise, and then we put Hernandez, for example, then it will show the question about your date of birth because the sort of input that we were looking for, Brittany as the first name, was true. So now we can put this information and then be taken to the end. So that's how page logic works as well. Now let's talk a little bit about, so far everything is tracking the same except for the couple of things that we've noted between the differences between the different plans or sort of full versus student account. So now let's go into a little bit of the Word add-in. So if we go into Microsoft Word and we want to create a new document, then what we can do is, if you haven't done this already, what you're going to want to do is install the document tagger. You can do so by going to Developer and Add-ins and looking in the store for Gavel. Sorry, let me just see. You can just say add and then follow the steps. I think there's also one on insert, get add-ins, and you can do so here as well. So a couple of different ways you can do that. And once you do, you'll see the document tagger come up here on the side. I'm just going to quickly stop sharing my screen so that you don't see my API key. But if you, let me just go ahead and sign in. Right. Okay, perfect. So I'll show you quickly how to create an API key so that you can connect it. So when you first go to your document tagger, it's going to ask you for the subdomain as well as, or a client name. So client name is going to be this part that comes before gavel.io. So in our case, A to J, or whatever your chosen subdomain is when you pick your unique subdomain. And then it's also going to ask you for your API key. So you can create your API key going to settings, going to API key, and then give it a name. So usually a Word add-in and then something else. So A to J, for example, or test or whatever you want to say. Then you say create a key, and it's going to give you a long string of sort of numbers and letters in combination. And you're going to copy paste that. And you're only going to be able to see it once, but it's easy to create a new one if you mess up. Or gets compromised in any way. And then you're going to put that into your document tagger here. And then you'll be able to see what it does is it allows you to connect your Gavel account and all the workflows that you created, and it will make it to where those are reflected here in the Word add-in. you can interact with your information. So if you already had, let's say, a contract or some kind of template that you wanted to work off of, you could do so. Now, instead, if you wanted to create from scratch, you can do so as well. So once you have connected your API key to your document tagger here, you'll be able to see the different workflows that you have on your dashboard. So as you can see, we have this tracking with our DEMI demo, interactive resume, eligibility for his housing grant, law firm pro bono, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Now, the one that we've been working on is this test master reference template, right? So right now, the questions that we have for someone that we want to ask them are things like, what's your first name, your middle name, and your last name, as well as a date of birth, if that one is filled out by the person because their first name is Brittany. So if we wanted to, we could put in some simple variables, such as all of them. So if we wanted to insert all questions in variables and format them as standard or uppercase or first letter capital, we can do so as well. We can quickly add in your questions and the answers just by saying insert all questions and variables, so you don't have to type them in from scratch, which is really useful. So when somebody completes this now, they'll put in their first name, their middle name, and their last name. If they don't put in date of birth, then this will be blank. If they do, then it will be here. Now, let's say, for example, we only want this to show if first name is Brittany, because let's say we don't want the line to show, and it's okay if it's like empty, but maybe we don't want the question to be there if it's not relevant for the user, the person seeing it at the end. So in this case, we can use a show phrase one or show paragraph one. And this has to do with kind of spacing between these two, but the point is that you can have something like a show phrase one. So for example, we want to say show phrase, so this highlighted portion, show this when the contact's first name is, and then you can say, add a condition, blank or something else. So you can kind of play with this, or is not blank. So let's say in this case, you can have, we want this to show if contact first name is not blank, or show this when, let's say, contact date of birth is greater than or equal to or less than some condition today or whatever else. And you can add multiple conditions on top of that if you'd like, or remove them. It's up to you. So next we have the ability to add this let's go ahead and save this one, for example. So let's go ahead and save this one as test master reference template, and then put today's date, May 3rd, 2023. This is just for me so that I can make sure I delete this later. So we're not going to attach any conditions or anything to this. We're just going to kind of put this in for now. And kind of put this in our output documents tab so that we can play with it a little bit. So now we can find this on our desktop here, and we can change the name so that it looks nicer when we at outputs, and we can reference people's other variables. So you can reference variables in different places. So for example, if we wanted to say something like Brittany's information, or Brittany Hernandez information, or whatever the person's first name and last name is, you can do so using a $sign and then some curly brackets around the variable. So let's say contact, we could say contact first name, and then we can have a space, and then we can do the same thing for the last name. So we'd say contact and then last name. So just make sure it's exactly the same. And then you can say like information or whatever you want. And you can also change how it generates. So if you only want it to be a Word document, for example, or if you only want it to be a PDF document, it's up to you. So you can do that if you'd like. Now that we have this particular document, we can start adding conditional logic if we wanted to. So we could say, for example, if contact first name is Brittany, and something else or something else, and adds lots of different logic here, you can, but then you can say output this document. So let's say that's the case, and you can make it to where we don't show this to the output, to the taker. We can send this as we mentioned before. Let's just say for now, we just want this to only show if the person's name is Brittany. So let's go ahead and refresh this and try this out. So let's do it to where it is Brittany, Louise, and Hernandez. We continue, we see this because the first name is Brittany, and we continue, and the information is input into our, you can see Brittany Hernandez comes here, and because we changed the name and used our little call sign with the $ and the curly brackets to create this, we saw that it only comes out as a PDF, and because we only chose PDF. And we can see that the first name, the middle name, and the last name, as well as the date of birth, have all been input from the workflow. Now, let's say we run this and we change our answer for Brittany to Bob. Let's say we said John, and then I think we said Becker, something like that before. So it's going to go all the way to the end, and it has skipped to the date of birth question, and it's also not shown the PDF document at the end because the condition of the first name being Brittany was not met. So that's how that works with conditional logic and so on. So that is kind of the basics here of the different sides and pieces of this. So I just wanted to show you now some more features that are in a paid plan, which are really fun to work with and also would change how you strategize your building. So if we go into an actual paid plan, which is mine here, what you'll see is I have something called a data manager. So a data manager allows you to look at your workflows. So you can look at all of your different workflows. I'm going to just look at this push test, for example. And we can see the past sessions and what the information was put in here, when it was updated, when it was created, who the user was, if they were logged in. We can access any documents, copy a continuation link, open this session, and so on. So there's lots of stuff you can do with this, including push information from one into another. So let's say I want to push the information from this particular session into another session. Then I don't have to go in and put in something that somebody's already answered. So we have client has already been pre-populated, and then I can put in the date of birth and continue, for example. Now I'll be able to see that session populated in the one here, which is the one I just created here. And we can interact with that data by pushing that into something else. So let's say we put that into push test 3. And now you have client, and that all of that session and information was pushed from a previous session. So that is how that works with your data manager. And like I said, that is going to be a big game changer in how you create your workflows. So you can make a lot of things that are internal where you're pushing information from, let's say, a client intake questionnaire into many different documents based on the client's needs. So we can also have different bulk actions. So let's say, for example, we could highlight all of these different ones, combine and push, we could say. We can do a bulk delete. We can search for something. So let's say if user contains somebody's name, or if date of birth or first name contains something, we can look by that as well. We can also perform a global search here and search the data manager across all of our different information for something specific if we're looking for something as well. Here, as I mentioned before, is where you'll find your integrations. So you'll be able to see that you can connect your Stripe account and collect payments for your workflows, as well as connect your Clio Manage accounts. You can also see that you're able to have your logo attached to the actual workflows, as well as your favicon here, so that you can have a nice branded experience for your end users. Now, if we go back into our dashboard here, you'll be able to see that you also have the feature that you're able to send a copy to a builder, meaning that it's going to be copied, or this workflow is going to be copied from your dashboard to your builder's dashboard. You can also assign a workflow to a builder or to a client, for example. And then you still have the ability to duplicate, delete, or copy the continuation link, as well as go into edit and run, as well as create a new workflow from this paid account and see all of your different applications, workflows that you've built too. One of the differences I mentioned too is around user management. I'm just going to go in here and quickly find my demo one so I can show you what you can do here. So in this particular case, what you can do and what you can see here is that you can search through your users to find someone specific or a specific email address, for example. You can update their information for them and it will update in their accounts. You can change their role quickly and easily here, make somebody a builder, organizational user, or a user, and you can make them active or inactive and so on. So that's how you're able to utilize this kind of user feature, as well as add new users quickly by their name and their email, as well as admin, builder, organizational user, or user. So I'm going to quickly go over each of these roles. So an admin has access to all user permissions, system settings, and billing. A builder has access to build and take workflows, as I showed you with the other account from the A2J subdomain. An organizational user has access to take workflows from multiple sets of data and view data associated with multiple matters. So they have their own mini data manager as well. And then they also have the ability, you also have the ability as an admin to assign users. So that's kind of the default one when somebody creates an account on your subdomain, is they're just given a basic user account, which is a really beautiful client portal where they're able to see their past sessions and view their past answers. So here we say that they have the ability to access to take workflows for only a single set of data. Any data entered into one workflow session will populate into other workflows. These are takes if the variables overlap. So that's something called data persistence, which is really useful. So it's something that we should really have in our build strategies, which is the ability to have an understanding of how user information gets interacted with. So I'm just going to show you quickly a couple of the different user types. So I'm going to find an organizational user, a user. So let me see. The support one is organizational. Right. So I'm just going to show you as well as a builder. So let me just find builder as well. So I'm just going to quickly in the last few minutes here show you the differences between an admin, a builder, an organizational user, and a regular user. So let me pull that out quickly. One second. Okay, almost there. All right, so let me just show you quickly first the difference between an admin and a builder, and then we'll go into the other pieces as well. So if we look here at so that's the kind of A2J one, but this is in a paid full account. So if we look at the differences between these two, so this is an admin's dashboard. So the rest of the dashboard looks the same in that they're able to send a copy to a builder, assign workflows, create one, edit, run, and so on. But if we look at the sidebar here between a builder and an admin, you can see that they don't have the user tab, and then the integrations are going to be the same as whatever is in the admin account. The data manager, you're still able to look at different sessions, and then you're able to still search in the data manager globally. You're still able to use CSV files, but these are going to be shared across the subdomain. So whatever is added to this one will also be added to the admin and so on. And then you can still see your document templates and images. Setting-wise, you're only able to create API keys rather than update any system settings or billing settings. So that's the difference there. So that is going to be your builder account versus your admin account. And then we're going to go into now an organizational user layered on top of that. So this is what an organizational user's account looks like. And you can assign this to someone and they're able to look at their past sessions in the same way that a data manager functions for you as an admin or a builder. But they're only going to see their own information rather than the information for the entire subdomain. So whenever they are logged in, they're able to continue their session or view their answers like this, and they're able to interact with their data based on whichever workflow they've taken and perform bulk actions like delete, for example. So they have more permissions than a regular user, but less permissions than an admin or a builder. So finally, we have the default, which is the most basic version, which is the user. So you can see that they don't have a data manager, but they are able to still see their sessions. So they're able to continue a session if they are on a long one and want to take a pause, for example, and they're able to view their answers from past sessions here. They're also able to have information sort of pre-populated if the variables overlap, which is what we talked about with data persistence. So these are some of the main differences and similarities between something like a student account versus a paid account, and especially within the paid account, having things like the data manager, the global search feature, the ability to manage your users, the ability to use CSV files, and so on. So you'll see here the differences as well between the admin account, the builder account, the organizational user accounts, and the user or default accounts for somebody who signs up on your subdomain when you are the admin. So I hope that's useful. And I'm just going to go ahead and close us out now. So give me 1 second. So as I mentioned, this has just been an introduction to Gavel, where we're looking at the student accounts versus the full, and a live walkthrough of how we created just a basic template and the feature differences between the different plans. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'll give you my information now or in a moment. But before I do, I'm just going to go through a few announcements. So this has been the Wednesday build, and we have new live episodes every Wednesday. I also run Code Word Hex, which has new issues out every Tuesday, as well as the Tuesday Forecast, which is a free weekly newsletter that lets you know about all of the different upcoming events. I also have certification courses at Chromium Academy on Gavel, as I just kind of walked through and showed you, as well as courses in software and Airtable, as well as the certification course in Go Full Page, which is a Chrome extension, with more to come. We also ran the fellowship for the Law Students in Legal Tech Access to Justice Fellowship for Gavel. We also have our own community called Chromium Global, as well as a community specifically for the law students. And we have a very active Slack group in Gavel if you'd like to join us there, where you can ask any questions about sort of if you're stuck on anything or need help. So thank you so much for coming and for viewing this. As again, my name is Brittany Hernandez, and I do this every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Next time will be Wednesday, the 10th of May at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We're going to be talking about legal tech pedagogy, which is the idea of how to teach legal technology education. So this is going to be around lessons learned as Gavel's global ambassador to law schools. And if you'd like to reach out to me or connect with me with any inquiries about the law school program, you can reach me at brittany@gavel.io, or if you just want to connect with me on LinkedIn or via email, you can do so at brittany@chromium.pro. So thank you so much again, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.